Okay.
Hi, and welcome to Novel Idea. Her name is Dia, and I'm James. Cut. I think I'm ready to start. I think maybe we should just have a little prep time and then come back and do this again.
Hi everyone. Welcome back to Novel Idea. My name is Dia. Today we are going to be doing the 500 subscriber video to say thank you to all of you for subscribing to the channel and for being a part of this community. So I have gathered all of the questions. We tried to prepare a little bit. James is going to be reading the questions, and then if there's a question for both of us, he will jump in with an answer as well. And I'm sure that he'll jump in even when there isn't an answer for him. So let's get started because there's lots of questions and I don't want this to go too long.
Most of these questions start with a big congratulations for Dia on her 500 subscribers. And yeah, let's jump into these questions. This is from Chrissy. What was the most memorable scene you read in a book this year?
So that's really hard to narrow down. There's one scene in particular I think that stands out, and it was actually clear back at the beginning of the year. So it's obviously hanging on with me. I read a book called Babette's Feast by Isaac Dinesen, and the end of the story is a feast that her whole village takes part in. And just the way it's described, what happens around the table, the people and the emotion, the description of the food, all of that really has stuck with me. So I'm going to go with that one.
Dorothy would like to know some of the things you like to do outside of BookTube. For instance, do you like to camp, hike? Have you been to national parks? Any fun family adventure stories?
Hang on. As far as national parks go, we've been to a lot of national parks. We live in an area that's pretty covered in national parks. So we've been to Rainier National Park, we've been to North Cascades National Park, Olympic, we just drove through. We used to live in Montana, so we have been to Glacier, we've been to Yellowstone, we've been to Acadia in Maine. We've been to the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. We used to live right on it, right? It was our backyard, basically. Can you think of others that we've been to?
That's a good list.
I do love camping. Give me a cabin in the woods and you know, a little bit of protection from the elements, and I really love to be out in nature. And then as far as other things that I like to do off of BookTube, I love to garden, love to cook, take photos. I like to knit and crochet. I like to color. Yeah. Do you have any fun family adventures that you can think of?
Oh, not off the top of my head.
We used to take the kids camping a lot when they were young. We had lots of adventures when the kids were at home, but we've moved across country a couple of times. That's always an adventure. Well, just being in Montana with the kids was an adventure. So I'll just say those.
Redhead Reading asks that she says that she'd love to hear about some of the first books you can remember captivating you. And outside of reading, do you consider yourself to have a signature food dish?
So, books. Thank you, Sophie, by the way. Books. There was one when I was in 3rd grade that completely captured me. Set me on that fantasy kind of journey in my life, and that was a book called Sir McInerney, and it looks like Sir Machinery. But what happened was somehow a box with a robot in it time traveled back to Arthurian England or Britain, and worked back then. And so he became a knight in Arthurian Britain, and it was just a fascinating, I'm sure that it's just a simple little story. I haven't reread it since then, but I remember it vividly because it was funny, and there was this aspect of otherworldliness about it. So that one. And then I read the Chronicles of Narnia completely out of order when I first read them. And my very first one that I read is still my favorite one to this day, and that was The Silver Chair. And again, just an otherworldliness about it. I still love Puddleglum to this day. He's my absolute favorite character in Narnia besides Aslan. And so, yeah, I'll say those two. Those ones really captured me. And then as far as food dishes, I have become vegan over the last 11, 12 years. And so signature dishes have definitely changed. But it used to be things like stew and baking powder biscuits, chicken enchiladas, those kinds of things. And now it's more like watermelon salsa, or just salsa, like a fresh salsa, not a cooked one. And just different types of salads. I really love a Greek salad. I have this one that has tons of different veggies in it that are chopped up really, really fine. And so I love those as well. And those are kind of what I go back to. And then like a glass noodle salad or a stir fry.
Next questions are from Katya.
Gotcha.
Katya asks, how has BookTube influenced your reading preferences and the way you explore new books?
So the whole reason why I began watching BookTube was because I was picking some real duds when it came to reading. I hated the books I was reading. So I started watching BookTube in hopes of getting recommendations from other people that had read the books that sounded like, and were explaining them so that it sounded like maybe something I would enjoy. And it still took a little while to find people that I trusted that had very similar tastes. I definitely have found people that I know when I'm going to like a book if they like it, or I know I'm not going to like a book if they don't like it. I don't really do many new books, but I love to watch the people who take the time to investigate, what's coming out, what they explain, what it's about, maybe give some recommendations to go watch a booktuber that has already read the books that are coming out. Once I've heard several kinds of reviews, then I know whether or not it's really going to be a book I want to pick up, because I tend to read things that are backlist books. I don't hardly ever pick up a new book. So I hope that answered your question.
Katya has a part 2 about Korea and books that you've read about that part of the world. And if they resonated with your past experiences or if they were different. Maybe give you a new insight into South Korea.
I don't think I've read anything that's given me a new insight, maybe giving me a little bit more background on what I've already known. I have found something that is really odd to me is that when I went to Korea, the people there were probably some of the kindest, most gentle, they love to laugh. They're always smiling. There was very few times where I ever saw somebody that was upset. They kind of just are easygoing, roll with the punches kind of people, and very willing to serve and always want to make you feel welcome and included. And one of the things I have found in Korean literature in reading it is that it is depressing and has all of these themes in it that are present in their society, but they are not prevalent in their society, or they're not at the forefront, I guess. It's not the face that Koreans show you. And so it's been interesting to read Korean literature and not see the Korea that I know in the book that I'm reading. That's all I can think of.
Olive has a couple questions about our corgi named Poppy Seed. Poppy's favorite food, I could answer a number of different ways. First of all, I would say anything. Anything edible, all food. I can't imagine a more food-motivated dog. In fact, we have to have some treats in our pocket, which for me usually just means dog food in my pocket when we're out, just to give her a little extra incentive to be good and obey. But apples are a huge treat for her. She loves little slices of apple.
She's probably freaking out right now in her kennel.
Yeah, because we said that word.
Because she heard the word.
And then I'll spell this word, B-O-N-E. We don't have any in our freezer right now, but when she's had a few evening B-O-N-Es as her reward for the day, she usually has those under our bed in her little bed area, and she just loves them. And if we don't have them, she'll just go there under the bed in the evening waiting for a half hour or longer in just an intense posture awaiting a B-O-N-E, even if there isn't one coming. So those are some of her favorite foods. Babe, why doesn't Poppy get more screen time?
I never purposely exclude Poppy. Sorry, Olive. I know that you are stuck to your daddy like glue, but Poppy is not the kind of dog that always wants to be on camera. In fact, most of the time she gets upset with me if I try to take her picture. She'll move. But I don't ever exclude her on purpose. If she wants to be in the video, she is in the video. I promise. I'm not a mean mama.
Yeah, she's really strange when it comes to not you, the dog, but when it comes to like taking her picture or something, it's like you're stealing her soul. It's like she just has this awareness of the camera and she doesn't like it. Shelley wants to know what your favorite middle grade series was, your favorite snack, and how did you and your husband meet?
You want me to answer the
all
first two
and you can answer all of them.
So Middle grade series. I have a lot of middle grade series. If you're talking about a middle grade series from when I was little, I loved The Great Brain. I loved John D. Fitzgerald, I think is the author. And I loved every single, I think there are 8 books in that middle grade series. They're all short, but they are funny. There's a little bit of adventure, there's family and connection, and there's, there's always some sort of little, not mystery necessarily, but you always kind of know that something is about to happen, and how are these boys going to get out of it? It's 3 brothers, 2 in particular, a 4th one comes along later, and it's this little teeny tiny town in, I want to say, the mid to late 1800s, early 1900s, and it's just fabulous. I love it. Read it to my kids when they were little, but I'm a typical girl. I love, Anne of Green Gables I loved Little House on the Prairie. But now if you're talking about from when my kids were young and reading middle grade and still to this day loving, that would be Redwall. That would have to be Redwall. I love Brian Jakes. I love his writing. I love these stories with these strong moral characters and descriptions of food that are to die for. And it's action and adventure and found family and just all of that. And I just love Redwall.
Favorite snack?
Oh, snack. I don't snack very much, but I like salty and crunchy better than sweet. So things like, I make a kind of a popcorn that I really like, and like chips and crackers, dip, that kind of stuff I like, but I try to stay away from them. So I don't, and then fresh fruit. I like fresh fruit for a snack with peanut butter.
I'll answer the one about how we met. We met in PE class in high school. We had 2 PE teachers, Mr. Seibel and Mrs. Glaze, and it was kind of a fun PE
unit,
semester, because we were dancing through the decades, and so we were learning all these dances together, and we were dance partners. So we got a chance to be.
He asked me to dance.
We got a chance to be up close and personal. And,
but we didn't know each other's name right away.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't talk in class.
And we actually did okay. The teachers used us as the dancing partner instructors. So Mr. Seibel would dance with Dia, and Mrs. Glaze would dance with me to show the others how to do it. And so that's how we met. Dave asks, what is the most disturbing book you ever read? And which book was the biggest surprise in terms of how good it was?
Dave likes to read horror. He knows that I'm not a horror fan. I don't think I've ever read a horror novel. I may have tried at one point, but I don't think I've ever actually read a horror novel. Can you think of anything that I've ever freaked out about that I'm reading? Yeah, I will say the book by Mike Warnke that he wrote about being a high priest in the Satanic Church, that one freaked me out. I don't know if it was meant to or not, but it sure did freak me out. I had bad dreams for a long time. Do you remember what it was called?
I don't. He was kind of a comedian, but he'd also
Satanic high priest comedian.
Yeah, And then years later, the story came out that it was all lies. It was all stuff he made up.
So it's a novel, basically.
For some reason. But
even though it's meant to be an autobiography. That was, or either that or something by Frank Peretti would probably be the most disturbing that I have ever got.
Biggest surprise in terms of how good it was.
As far as in recent years, T. Kingfisher's What Moves the Dead was a reimagining of Edgar Allan Poe's House of Usher, and it was really good. I thought her take on it was amazing, and it completely surprised me because of how different it was, and yet it still felt like it could be an Edgar Allan Poe story. The other one that completely surprised me, that I ended up really enjoying and didn't have a clue what I was getting into when I started it, was Plutarch's Lives. It was funny, and you could tell that he had some sort of bias about some of the people, but it didn't matter because it was just such a good side-by-side comparison of a Roman Greek life, and the way that he put them together was by something that he saw that was familiar maybe in both of the lives. It was just so good. I just loved it. So I'll say those two.
Courtney wants to know, has being on BookTube changed the way you read? What's your favorite book you've read this month? And what has been the biggest surprise about being on BookTube?
The only thing that has changed, I think, with the way that I read is that when I'm doing a buddy read or when I'm doing a readathon or that kind of thing, there's a deadline. My favorite book so far this month, I'm gonna cheat just a little bit because I actually haven't read one that I love this month, but I finished a book on the very last day of last month. And that is How Do You Live by Yoshino. And it's a Japanese translated novel, and it's about this boy whose father has passed away, and he is being raised by his mother and his uncle. And his uncle promised his father that he would help him to become the kind of man in the world that only did the world good. And so it's this kind of conversation that happens in writing between the uncle and the boy, and then his friendships and how those conversations play out in the real world for him. And I just absolutely loved it. It was wonderful. Biggest surprises, I'm going to be typical here and just say it's the people. Whether it is somebody that has a channel, whether it's a subscriber, just a commenter, all of those things, even if it's a channel that I watch but they don't watch me, it's the people that has been so incredibly surprising. The fact that they want to buddy read with me, the fact that they challenge me to think about things, that they, want to answer questions that I have or talk to me back about the books that I'm reading. All of that has surprised me in how abundant it is. And I am just grateful. I just love it. It's wonderful.
A musical bookworm asks, what's a typical day like for you? How do you fit in your reading time? And if you could only eat one dessert for the rest of your life, what would it be?
This is Victoria. Musical bookworm is Victoria. So thank you, Victoria. A typical day in my life and how do I fit in reading time? I am a very early riser. I no longer have children at home, and I don't currently have a job outside of the house. So all of those things are very conducive to being able to get reading time in. And I'm very thankful for that. I rise probably around 4 a.m. usually. I do my supplements, I do coffee, I do some devotion time, I do a little bit of yoga or exercise of some sort, and then I sit down and I read. And I read until I get our dog out of her kennel in the mornings to go outside and get her breakfast and all of that. And I often will have an audiobook going even during the day while I'm trying to get things done, while I'm researching things on the computer, while I'm applying for a job. Oftentimes I have an audiobook going. So that's the way that I fit time in. And then I go to bed early. I'm usually in bed, well, to go to sleep, I'm usually in bed 7 o'clock is usually when I'm kind of getting under the covers, and I don't necessarily fall asleep at that time, but I get under the covers, put in an audiobook, fall asleep, then I have to rewind the next morning, go back to the chapter that I left off on. And as far as dessert goes, once again, I am not a sweet person. I don't love sweets. And so probably fresh fruit is my favorite thing to eat for dessert. And I would eat fresh fruit happily if it's ripe fresh fruit. I love berries of just about any sort, and I love peaches and nectarines. So we'll go with that.
Fiber Artsy Reads asks, what is top on your bucket list of places to visit?
Can you answer this one?
Oh, I would love to visit a lot of different places.
Do you know what my top bucket list place?
Oh, Greek Isles?
That's one of them, yeah. I would love to visit the Greek Isles, all of them. I just want to cruise around and spend 4 or 5 days on each Greek Isle. It would take a long time. Top of my bucket list, I would say probably that. It used to be Maine, but I've gotten to go to Maine twice. It still is actually someplace that I want to go back to and visit some more.
I think this is Kelly. She asked, what was the first mystery you loved? What is your favorite time in history to read about? And if you were forced to play an actress in a film about a classic novel, which female character would you want to be?
The first mysteries I remember reading was by an author named Phyllis Whitney. And she has a series for younger, 12 and up. All of them start with the mystery of something. So there's the mystery of the haunted pool or the mystery of the missing hand. It's a series that I remember really, really enjoying. So Phyllis A. Whitney, I think is her name.
Favorite time in history to read about?
Is ancient times. I love ancient times, like biblical days. I love that time frame, that time period. Constantinople, the early Romans, early Greeks. I love that time period. And then medieval times after that, like Arthurian times. But even like ancient Ireland and that kind of thing. And then as far as actresses, what is it? If I was an actress in a film about a classic novel, okay. Well, I'm older now, so the ones that I would like to play, I'm too old to play. So I will say I would love to play Marmee in Little Women. I think that would be a good role. And I love Marmee. And I would love to play Susan Sowerby in like The Secret Garden. I think that would be a beautiful role to be able to play. She has so much wisdom. If I was younger, I would like to play Molly from Wives and Daughters. That would be my choices.
Charlie Brooke Reads asks, where are your favorite places to read? Do you have any rituals, routines to maximize your coziness? And what are some of your favorite things to read about in fiction? Favorite tropes?
Well, the favorite tropes, I already went over a few of them. I love found family and just that strong family bond, whether it's found family or real family or whatever it is. I love that trope. I really love kind of that protagonist that overcomes a lot in order to get somewhere and does it with a really like good heart, continues to have that heart throughout the whole difficulty process. I don't know what you would call that. Kind of along those same lines, I love something that is a school or mentor professor situation where there's that really strong moral teaching of, you know, from a motherly, fatherly figure in a story. I love those. I do love adventure. I do not love war. I don't love war or battle. It can be happening, but I don't want to be reading about it. I want kind of what's going on behind the scenes, and I do love political stuff in a book. I don't love political stuff in real life, which James knows, because James loves political stuff in real life, and I'm always running out of the room when a podcast comes on for that. The other thing that I really love in stories, and I don't know if this is a trope, but I love it when the everyday, the very mundane, the mundanity of life is kind of elevated, and we get to see the beauty of it instead of feeling the humdrum or the monotony. I really love that. Is there another question? Oh, routines or rituals to maximize coziness. I like to read on my bed a lot of times, just because it's soft and it's a place where I can put my feet up. And I almost always have something to drink. There's always a beverage close by.
Next question is from Penny. If you could only read one book over and over, excluding the Bible, which book would it be? And what is your favorite classic? And Penny defines a classic before 1970.
Written before 1970, okay. When Penny put this question online, I commented back to her, "You're killing me, Smalls, you're killing me." Because anybody that knows us knows that there's not just ever one book that we want to read over and over again. And we can't choose a favorite, not even if you say favorite classic.
But if you had to.
I am going to go with the ones that I read over and over with right now. And that is Dune. I read over and over. I love it. I read A Wrinkle in Time over and over. I read The Gifts from the Sea by Anne Morrow Lindbergh. I read that one over and over. Hinds Feet for High Places by Hannah Hurnard. I read over and over. 1,000 Gifts by Anne Voskamp is another one that I have read several times. We'll go with those. Favorite classic, again, not going to be able to pick just one. But I will say Brothers K, so Brothers Karamazov or Karamazov, however you want to say it. I don't know how it's supposed to be. And Nicholas Nickleby, Jane Eyre, and things like The Secret Garden and Little Lord Fauntleroy, and I love Anne of Green Gables. Yeah, those are the kinds of favorite classics that I have.
Beautiful Minutia was happy that we were going to be doing this video together, and she wants to hear from both of us what our favorite locations are that we've lived, and if I have a favorite book, or maybe books that we've enjoyed together. On location, just the way that I'm wired, I really cannot pick a favorite location that we've lived. Growing up in Eastern Washington, desert sagebrush, not much to look at, but that will always be home to me, or a big part of my past. And each season has just had a unique value to me personally. So I honestly cannot pick one favorite location. And I'll go ahead and just go to the favorite book. Haven't read a ton over the course of my life. I read every day, but just not a big book reader. But Dia recently bought me a book at Goodwill, and it was by an author that I had enjoyed before. His name's Philip Keller. The classic he wrote is called A Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23. And the book that I just lost on vacation, that I'm 3/4 of the way through, is called Lessons from a Sheepdog. And this guy, Philip Keller, was an actual shepherd up in Vancouver, Canada area. In this recent book that I've been reading, it's just a beautiful metaphor for the relationship between Jesus and his sheep. And so just a beautiful book about this relationship between a shepherd and his dog. The dog was broken and abused when he found this dog and rescued it, and then how he had to build trust with that dog, and that dog worked beside that shepherd to where it was just an invaluable asset to the shepherd. And again, just a picture between the Lord and all of us that are willing to be used. And sometimes we need healing, and sometimes we need training. So just beautifully written with so many rich insights from someone who actually lived in that world. And so these stories from his past, they really hit home because they're so rich in authentic meaning. And so that's the book that I would probably choose as a favorite right now. Yeah.
So this is Tiffany, and she actually had a little part at the end that said, also, I'd like to know who your favorite friend is that has also lived in 7 states and currently lives in Kentucky. Just wondering. And that would be my favorite Tiffany in the whole world. As far as like where we've lived that I think has been my favorite location, was probably actually the first place that we lived in Montana. And I loved it because it was up on a mountainside. It was an older home, and nobody felt like they needed to, tiptoe around it and not live in it. And it was built into the side of a mountain, and so we had a beautiful view. We had surrounded by woods, and we had a stream in our backyard, and we had wildlife coming through at all hours of the day, every day of the week. And it was just a fun place to have young teens. I just loved it. It was a really special place, let's put it that way. Special time in a special place. So that would probably be my favorite as far as for those reasons. But my favorite place is always going to be, like James said, just Moses Lake, where it's, you know, not much to look at, but the seasons are definite. And they, you know, there's a definite fall, there's a definite winter, and the gardening time there is just fabulous, and you know, that's where most of our married life was in Eastern Washington. So
Ms. Richards reads, asks, if you could be any character in any novel, who would you choose and why? And you kind of talked about that one.
I did a little bit. So Stephanie, I'm actually going to answer this a little bit differently, because this I'm not having to play the actress. I'm not having to be in front of anybody. I get to be in the book. So I can be anybody that I want to be. So I would say, first of all, like Angela, the sorceress in Eragon series. And I think the reason for that is because she is mysterious. She's much more than she appears to be. And she has a really good heart. And so I think that would be a fun character to be. And then I would be Beth March from Little Women. And the reason for that is just because she has always been my favorite. I absolutely adore her. When we were having kids, I tried really hard to get James to agree to the name Beth, and he didn't like it. And so I never got a little girl named Beth, but I have always loved Beth from Little Women, because she, again, is just very generous of spirit and always wants to nurture, take care of people. So I think those two characters would be, I would be honored to be one of those. So I would choose one of those.
Beth, I hear you calling.
Oh, don't.
But I can't read you right now.
Is that Kiss?
'Cause me and the boys are playing, and we just can't find the sound.
I think that might be the reason why he didn't
just a
like
few more
the name.
hours, and I'll be right home to you. I think I hear them calling. Oh, Beth, what can I do? Boom, boom, Beth, what can I do?
Now will you answer my question? Is that Kiss?
Oh yeah, baby.
That's not what I meant. Here, let me clean
Oh
this
no,
up.
no, no. Oh no. I'm gonna wear that for the rest of the video. Aaron. Hi, Aaron. Aaron asks, what would you say is the best thing about the Pacific Northwest? And are there any books you'd recommend that are set in the area?
Ooh. So Pacific Northwest. Well, I already said this, but Four Seasons, one of the best things about being back up here is that, again, we have a definite winter, a definite spring, a definite fall. Things change colors, things get crisp. Things get very wet, things get very cold. We're about to experience 106-degree weather tomorrow for summer. So it's the seasons is one of the things that I missed the most about not living in the Pacific Northwest. So I will say that that's one of them. One of the other things is being close to lakes, to be close to the ocean. I love water. I don't want to be in it, and I don't even necessarily want to be on it, but I want to see it, and I love listening to it. So those two things. The other thing that I get to rub it in, because my girls are still in the South, and I kind of get to rub this in when we do not have huge mosquitoes, or mosquitoes hardly ever, really. We do not have giant bugs that are harmful and hurtful. And we don't have snakes that are harmful and hurtful either. So we do have rattlesnakes, but the good thing about a rattlesnake is they let you know that they're there. So we just don't have a lot of poisonous stuff. I like being outside a heck of a lot more because it's safe.
Any books that you'd recommend set in the Pacific Northwest?
I have a list. Boys in the Boat by Daniel K. Brown is a book about University of Washington rowing team that made it to the Olympics. So that one, The Art of Racing in the Rain. There's a whole set of cozy mysteries that is set in Seattle. That's what's going to happen in saying something Pacific Northwest. 9 times out of 10, it's going to either be in Portland or it's going to be in Seattle. So the Seattle Spice Shop Cozy Mysteries by Leslie Budewitz. Wild by Cheryl Strayed, I think, is about her time walking the Pacific Crest Trail. And so that is set over here. Hotel at the Corner of Bitter and Sweet. Let's see. There's a book by Ursula K. Le Guin that's not as well known, that's called Lathe of Heaven, and that is set in the Pacific Northwest. Rabbits by Terry something, I will leave it in the description box, is set in the Seattle area. Pines, or the Wayward Pines series, is set in the Pacific Northwest. That's by Blake Crouch. Cloud Cuckoo Land has a section that is in Idaho. And then Eragon was based on this area of the country because Christopher Paolini is actually from this area. So, yes, those are some books.
Celeste asks, what are some of your interests and life experiences outside of BookTube?
I already kind of went over some of the interests. I like cooking, I like gardening, I like crocheting and coloring and taking photos. I like all of those things. As far as life experiences go, I'm a grandma. I have 5 grandbabies, and I don't get to see any of them enough. We live in the same town as 3 of them, and even them I don't get to see quite as often as I would like. But I did just get to see them yesterday, so that's my tank is full for a little while, for another day maybe. It's gonna start dissipating. We're talking life experiences here. I used to ride horses competitively. So I rode gymkhana and I rode dressage. I used to be a really good speller. I won the regional spelling bee when I was in high school. I have served as a page at the state level of Senate. And I don't know how to explain that to people that are in the UK or Europe. I've been a mime, and I've led teams of teenagers to South Korea and vice versa. Had Korea come over and stay with us, and got to show them around the county that we were living in at the time. And yeah, been married to this guy for almost 35 years. That's a life experience. There you go.
All right. Bandana Book Mom asks, have you ever thought about writing a book? What kind of book would you write?
I have thought, this is Talia, by the way. I have thought about writing a book. I thought about it a lot more when I was younger. I haven't thought about it too much in recent years, but we were actually just talking about this. We were talking about picture books and if I would write something like that and have somebody else illustrate it. I think that I don't feel qualified enough to write something that would be like the great American novel or some epic, thing that's going to stand the test of time. But I would love to try to maybe write a middle grade or a picture book. I just really love kids, so I think I would probably write a kid's book.
Liv asks, what is the story behind your corgi? What are your favorite theological Christian books you would recommend? I'll talk about our dog a little bit. We got Poppy Seed while we lived in Texas. She was 2 months old, and we got her in a little farming town outside of Dallas called Corsicana.
Couple that bought her mom bought the mother without knowing that she was pregnant, and then found out that the people they had bought her from, their other corgi had gotten this corgi pregnant, but it was 2 different breeds of corgi, and so they couldn't sell them, able to be registered as purebred because they were 2 different breeds of corgi, and so they couldn't. It's one of the reasons why she wasn't as expensive as some others would have been. So anyway, go ahead, finish.
We had roommates at the time down in Austin, and so her first couple years were with a couple guys, Thomas and Mark, and we would go out with a soccer ball and have fun with the dog and play some keep away, usually in the evenings, and had some adventures in Texas before we brought her up here to the Northwest. And just as empty nesters in this season, she's just a lot of fun to have. One of my love languages is touch. I really like to touch and feel, I feel love that way. And so to have a dog to sit next to me and be close, to express affection to me, is pretty cool.
Because I don't.
You do sometimes, babe. Yeah, especially when we get her energy out, she's pretty cuddly, so we like that. And she's a great exercise accountability partner. Mm-hmm. She gets us out every day, multiple times, like all dogs do, but kind of nice to get some extra steps in, and the dog definitely helps us do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keeps us young. Took me a long time to talk James into getting another dog. So I researched what kind of dog we should get and all of that kind of thing. All right, so as far as theology books go, or Christian theological books, I would recommend just about any Tozer. I've really enjoyed him over the years. and that goes with Frederick Buckner too. I really like Frederick Buckner. And I already mentioned Anne Voskamp's 1,000 Gifts. I have read that multiple times, probably 3 times. So I would recommend that. If we're talking theological, but not, if you want something that's not apologetics and is more of a theological story, things like Brother Andrew's, is it Brother Andrew? I think it's Brother Andrew, God's Smuggler, and Corey ten Boom's The Hiding Place, and Jean Edwards' 3 Kings, which I think is a play. But those ones, I would say, those are good ones.
Last question comes from Spread Book Joy. That's a great name.
Jack. That's Jack.
That's Jack. Hi, Jack. My question is, what has been your most memorable BookTube moment so far?
I don't know if I can pick just one of those either. I have loved everything that's like this, that is just being on screen with other people. So I've loved, my girls have got to come on. I have gotten to talk live with Tiffany and do things with her. I've gotten to do some with Courtney. I got to host a readathon with some great ladies, and so those have been really memorable. I love being able to just interact live with other people. So just getting to laugh and talk live with another person. So that is it, I guess, you guys. Thank you so much for sending in all the questions and just even caring, wanting to know anything.
Great questions.
And thank you for joining me.
Congratulations on 500 subscribers.
And sorry that it has taken me a little bit to get the video up after the subscribers happened. I don't know exactly when all of it happened, but I deeply appreciate all of you that even just want to sit and listen to me talk about books. And I love when you do interact with me in the comments, so please do. And I will try to leave some links to the things that we talked about down there. And I will talk to you all again very soon in the next video. Like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to.